Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Carrying the One with Travis and Andy. It's been a little bit, but we're here to get back to it. We got some great stuff to cover.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about the very controversial issue of Alex Pretti. As many of you have heard in headlines, he was shot and killed by an ICE agent. So today we're diving into one of the most controversial consequences story of the year. A story that has sparked national debate, grief in communities, and fierce questions about law enforcement, government narrative, and justice in America. And I think more importantly, what we'll dive into is really what the media is painting out this picture to be and what it actually is. So without further ado, let's dive into this for those of you that haven't watched it yet.
Overnight, outrage in Minneapolis after the killing of Alex Pretti, a 37-year-old ICU nurse shot Saturday morning by a federal Border Patrol agent. But at least 4 different videos of the encounter, analyzed by NBC News, appear to show Pretti with a phone in his hand in the moments before his death, attempting to come to the aid of a woman pushed to the ground by federal agents. An agent pepper sprays him before Pretti is brought to the ground. Some of the video shows an agent appearing to reach into the skirmish and remove a gun that looked like Pretti's. Then, Pretti is shot.
So here we have Alex Pretti. He's got what appears to be a khaki and brown jacket here. This looks like a long sleeve shirt underneath. Moving forward. Okay, so here we have a view of him as well. So he's definitely in the khaki pants, that's correct, with a light tan shirt, beanie, and then black shoes. And then as we see the skirmish go down, he goes down in front of the vehicle here. And so we do have black shoes. We do have the same color pants here, so I don't think there's any argument that that's not him, obviously, at this point.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, so this is the start of the confrontation. What I hear in the video, which we just received, are 2 men arguing. One is certainly Pretti, the other is an agent. One says, "Do not push them into the traffic." The other responds, "I'm pushing them away from traffic." It's unclear exactly, you can't prove exactly who's talking. But this is the first time that we've seen and heard what led up to the violence and just how quickly it unfolds right in front of us here. And as also another view of the agent pushing a woman with the backpack on, and it's still unclear why the agent is pushing her. And you are seeing it through the lens, literally, of a person parked right in front of all this. We also can hear agents yelling the word gun 4 times in roughly 4 seconds leading up to the sound of the first shot. Minutes later then, she keeps rolling. This panicked woman in the car videotaping, she says that she's scared to an agent who addressed her calmly, calling her ma'am, and saying she has to move to make room for medical there at the scene.
Okay, so before we get into that, this is going to paint a much fuller picture because this is everything that we have right now. There's not a whole lot of other footage showing the shooting of Pretti. He did have a phone. He was recording. I did some investigations into this because I'm trying to get the full story. And they haven't released yet the footage from Pretti's phone. So we don't have exactly his first-hand account. We only have eyewitness accounts and what they were recording at this time. But from right now, so far, I mean, how does that, paint the narrative for you guys? How does it paint the narrative for you so far, Travis?
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things too where like the evidence that we have is like all the videos are blurry. The narrator tells that you can hear these things, but we don't have a version of that video that we can necessarily hear those. So it's easy to manipulate that by saying something, and I don't have evidence that they're doing that at the moment. But however, it makes it easier to sell the story of one way or the other, how you so to choose to push it on either side, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So let's take a look, because this is really important to see the 11 days before the shooting of Pretti.
We were told Alex Pretti was just a peaceful nurse at the wrong place at the wrong time, delivering first aid to an injured protester. Well, we just obtained new video, days before the shooting, of a man who appears to be Pretti being not so peaceful. The Pretti family attorney and family members confirmed to the Minnesota Star-Tribune that the person in the video is Pretti. CNN reported that Pretti had a broken rib from an altercation with federal agents a week before his death. CNN claimed Pretti was just driving around minding his own business when he saw ICE agents chasing an immigrant family down the street. He went after them, jumped out of his car to help the family, then was tackled.
Okay, well, 11 days before we see Pretti get taken down by ICE, here he is assaulting an ICE vehicle, saying that he's trying to go and help this family. So he's obviously not a peaceful protester 11 days ago. He's an agitated protester. He's out there, he's kicking out a taillight, he's doing things that are illegal, that are not within the law. And then, if you notice, too, that second video, we see Pretti out in the middle of the street confronting ICE agents, not as a bystander on the sidewalks. And from that lady's perspective, the ICE agents are having to push him back into the sidewalk. So what I've kind of come to conclusion with is that Pretti was not the innocent person that the media has put him out to be. He was out there in the middle of the street for what purpose other than to agitate ICE officers right in their face, kicking out the taillights 11 days before. Granted, I don't think this ever justifies somebody getting killed.
Never.
But at the same time, I think that there's more justice to be had than just the ICE officer who shot him. I think this goes much deeper, and I think this goes into politicians, especially those in Minnesota, like the mayor who was seen on TV literally saying, ICE, get the fuck out, right?
Right.
And the Governor Walz, not, pleading to Donald Trump to release some of these ICE holds on people that they have in incarceration to go back and get deported. So It's a total non-cooperation from the federal government at a governmental, level of this that has just sparked all these things to happen. So for one, we can't be agitators, right? What is agitating doing? It's just provoking, looking for martyrdom.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And for two, yes, the ICE officer, he should be responsible, but where does this draw the line between peacefully protesting and trying to impede and agitate ICE officers?
I think what happens here is, the story goes that they're protecting. And am I saying everyone that is here illegally is a criminal? No. And I think that's clear to both sides. Not everyone is. Did they enter the country illegally? Yes. But they get the story told in such a way that it's like we're out protecting those ones. They're our friends, they're our neighbors. And so, it gets told as, we're protecting them. And then you watch videos like this. So it goes back to what you're saying about the agitation. So they're in the car, they're driving away. Mission accomplished, what have you. They're on their way out. Like, who is he serving in that instance? By going after the car and kicking the taillight. And not to say that there was no consequences for that action in the first place.
Right.
And had there been, maybe it could have saved his life in the end. And it's unfortunate is to say that. Even in the second one, there's a skirmish going on. He chooses to insert himself into that skirmish for whatever reason. But even in that specific clip, I don't see him, so much protecting anyone that is here that's an immigrant and or illegally or does that make sense?
It does. So here's what I think is going on, right? I think the formula for violence against ICE is actually really simple. And really, when I say violence against ICE, we're talking about violence against law and order. And a lot of times these people aren't connecting those dots, right? What they're doing is creating chaos, destroying a Hilton where ICE agents are known to be seen burning the American flag, doing these types of acts of violence is also against law and order. So accountability doesn't just lie with ICE. It involves, a lot of these distorted beliefs.
Right, because it's so much easier to go out and have actions like this and portray yourself in such a way when the check's being cashed for you.
Right.
When it's being reaffirmed to you that you're, fighting tyranny, that you have people on the media and people that are in leadership roles.
They think they're heroes.
And they're reaffirming to you that what you're doing is for the greater good, And meanwhile, it's serving their purpose or what they want, their narrative, and it's causing a lot of people harm. And so I do want to get into this formula.
Yeah. So here's the formula that I have. Okay. Some of these people on the left that are out there protesting, or not so much protesting, but more agitating, trying to impede in ICE, right, and what their operations are doing. They see themselves as hero fighting against a perceived fascism. They truly believe that the United States is already becoming a fascist country, and that their actions are necessary to stop it, and this is part of it. Number two, these beliefs are being expressed publicly by some activists and leaders. For example, we see leaders actually saying that they are fighting Nazis or comparing ICE to Gestapo. And this language is not just casual, it's intentional and it's strong, right? It's weaponizing speech.
Yeah, it's the buzzwords. And they the more they use them, unfortunately, that they realize that they harm the meaning of it, the true meaning of it. And so, it's one of those things like irony. It's a slippery slope. You start saying something because you think it's funny or goofy or ridiculous, and then it becomes a part of your vernacular, right, and your speech later on, because you've adopted it. And I think that's kind of what's going on in those instances. And then so they get those things going, and then the word has lost so much meaning that it's fired off constantly. I've never heard the word pedophile used more in my life, and even from the background I have, even saying the word is like, oof, that's taboo. And these people are calling someone that and making those kind of statements against somebody is a big no-no, as far as it has been before. It's
right.
So it's crazy to just see it being used so readily, and then
right.
I guess the big one that gets me is the Epstein files, and them. They all see a protester with a picture of Donald Trump shaking his hand, and it's like, but no one stops to realize that wasn't Epstein a Democrat?
Right. I know. You know what? But this is what further fuels this. There is something that's out there online right now called TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
So I think I'm about to prove this case right now that there really is such thing as Trump Derangement Syndrome, because what I think the liberals are failing to understand is that they are so deluded from the outcomes that they're actually trying to achieve. Right? What is the outcome of kicking out the taillight of that car? Do you really think that ICE is just going to let the family go after you kicked out their taillight? You know what I mean? You're just doing it to agitate and cause problems, right? There's no good outcome that's going to come from that. All these anti-ICE protests, I feel like they're portraying themselves as heroes trying to protect their communities and protest and do what they feel like is right. And I understand why they do that. But also at the same time, where's the outcome? Have any of these efforts caused Trump to go, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I should roll back on my policies. Even if you got Trump impeached, do you think Vance is going to just do that too, right? And I don't think that that's very plausible, right?
Yeah.
And so here's where I see that it's actually causing more harm than they think it is because right now the Border Patrol has the CBP-1 app, where if you are here illegally, you can get a free plane ticket back home. It's close to $2,500 incentive to do this for yourself, but they're painting this image in the media that what Trump is doing is wrong, and then these illegals feel like they have some type of right then to be here because of all these protests and everything that's going on, that they're not taking these actions in self-support. They're being taught or being encouraged to resist all of this stuff that's happening. And so who gets hurt? The illegals. Because when you don't self-deport yourself, now when you get deported by ICE, it's very clear that you don't have a chance coming back into this country legally. If you self-deport, they're willing to forgive some minor crimes. They're willing to allow you to enter back in legally. They're actually making it really easy if you just work with them and self-deport. So you're only harming those by doing the actions that they're doing right now.
Yeah, and there's an extent of it too that obviously there's willing manipulation. So you can look back, and that's one of the things that gets me too, is you look at former presidencies, and so you look at their due process. You look at the process in which they used to remove illegal immigrants from the country, how they did so, and under what circumstances they did so, and those things are still the same thing. He hasn't put in. The process itself hasn't changed. It's still the same process. It's just being made light of. And again, it's creating that sense of entitlement, I guess, that, and it's not just they're hurting each other. It's a whirlwind. And, you have to stop and ask yourself, who is the benefactor of this? At what point does someone believing these things and going out and doing these protests benefit you or the immigrant? You know,
Right.
It's like the same thing you'll see other conservative reporters like Caitlin Bennett. They'll go into crowds and they will talk to people, and it's a lot of the same, unfortunately. It's a lot of just buzzwords. He's got felonies, you know, he's a pedophile, he's this, and this. It all is always pointed at Trump. But it's the same thing over and over. And where they're unwilling to talk or negotiate or to speak with her, it's never their job to educate. And so that's my biggest thing. You're out with a sign on the street protesting this because you say you want to make a change. That is your claim, of which, you know, got you to where you are today, and that's what your justification is for being there and your actions. And yet you can't sit and tell somebody your side. Someone's giving you a platform, you know, to be correct and use your brain and your intellectual arguments to articulate it to them, and it's answered with, you can't come in here, we don't want you, loud noises, screaming, ICE, pretty, good, and all these agitations that, you know, they're not even willing to try to speak on it. And it's like, dude, there are people like you and I that would listen. I absolutely would sit there and listen. And I would love to sit there and even look it up and see. We've done it on many of our episodes where we're willing to go and say, okay, we've even ourselves gone and said, okay, is Donald Trump overreaching his hand? Why is this so much different than before? And I think that it's just that his independence from, you know, funding or lobbyism or whatever that gives him the ability to walk this path a little bit differently, because, you know, he can't really be bought at this point.
Right. And I think, you know, it's hard for these people to have any sort of sympathy for Trump. And, you know, where I kind of stand is he walked into a massive immigration mess. I mean, we covered an immigration podcast recently, and honestly, I'm really sad that I have to cover this again. You know what I mean? Like, 10 to who knows how many million people, but over 10 million people crossed the border illegally under 4 years of the Biden administration. Like how do you come back from that? How do you fix that problem? And if you are liberal and you're watching this, please just stay tuned and follow us, because we're about to play a clip from Obama, and he says it so perfectly. You know, he has what Trump doesn't have. He has the ability to communicate and capture attention with his voice, and Trump is a lot more vulgar and direct, and you know, he speaks out that way, but that doesn't, you know, mean that his actions aren't being effective here. So let's go ahead and play this. Here's Obama in 2010, you guys.
There are those in the immigrants' rights community who have argued passionately that we should simply provide those who are illegally with legal status, or at least ignore the laws on the books and put an end to deportation until we have better laws. And often this argument is framed in moral terms. Why should we punish people who are just trying to earn a living? I recognize the sense of compassion that drives this argument. But I believe such an indiscriminate approach would be both unwise and unfair. It would suggest to those thinking about coming here illegally that there will be no repercussions for such a decision. And this could lead to a surge in more illegal immigration. And it would also ignore the millions of people around the world who are waiting in line to come here legally. Ultimately, our nation, like all nations, has the right and obligation to control its borders and set laws for residency and citizenship. And no matter how decent they are, no matter their reasons, the 11 million who broke these laws should be held accountable.
So, what
How interesting. How interesting.
You know, where was the... And there's another report out there, too, which I think is worth mentioning. I don't know how... I didn't check the accuracy of it, but it said anywhere between 35 to 36 people were shot in ICE raids under Obama that didn't receive the news coverage that we're getting right now. I think this is really important because Obama says it really well. I mean, that's literally what it is. I mean, that's all we're doing, and nothing has changed between then and now. Biden allowed, 10 plus million people to enter the country, and now Trump has to fix it. You know? And he's actually, I think, did Obama at that time, this would be worth investigating, did Obama at that time offer incentives for self-deportation, or was he just sending agents out to get these people and deport them back? I would say that Obama's actually giving people, or Trump, I should say, is giving people a fair shot at this,
Yeah, so it brings me to a couple things. So let me ask you a couple. Let's say hypothetically, okay, if the case was with the narrative that they're just coming here and they're just trying to earn a living, okay? If that were the case, solely the case, would we have evidence of that at this point? Would there be something showing, either by the actions or the means in which that they do it, that prove that to be the case? And ideally, if it were true, okay, and we had that evidence, why would that deter them coming? Because at the point you just give them legal status, as if Obama's saying in the video, then there is no difference between them and an American citizen. So what you're proposing is that Mexico is thusly, has everyone born there, no matter what, has the same rights as a legal citizen of the United States. I guess I don't see I don't understand the disconnect from there, because that's not the case. As much as we want to sit and play pretend and act like, oh, they're just coming here for work and opportunity, I do believe that is true for some of them. It can't not be true. On the same paradigm, it cannot be true that it would be taken advantage of. It would be used by those to escape conviction, to not deal with things that they've gotten themselves into in their country. It would be a gateway for other countries to easily allow people into ours. And we have evidence showing that dangerous, violent criminals, gang members, have used the soft border and taken advantage of it, even going back to previous presidencies, even prior Joe Biden's administration. We have videos and things of anchor children, and their parents openly mocking, oh, look at my baby, because of my baby, I get food stamps, I get a place to live, I get all these things, and coming here and specifically having a child. Like, how is that fair to the child?
Right.
That they would come here and use that soft policy or law to take advantage of it and create a child that needs, human children need more nourishment and attention than almost any other species. And you want to argue that you're doing something good and it's positive behavior, not let alone the ones that kill them, not let alone the ones that take them, they are, doing those things. And I just don't see how you could see one side of the coin but not the other, but without willful ignorance.
Right. I think where the problem is we're shifting accountability. And I want to be clear, this isn't a Republican-Democrat issue. This is actually an executive issue. If you go back to George W. Bush, he did a terrible job managing the border. Then Obama gets in office. He fixes what George W. Bush did. And then we see this cycle, right? So Obama comes in, Trump also is able to, enforce the border policies a little bit better than Obama did. And then Biden comes in, first day of office, completely removes all the policies that were effective under Trump. And the result, all these illegals flooded in. Now, here's the big kicker, right? It's still, and I put quotations, illegal to cross the border. But why did we see a surge? Because there were many loopholes that Biden created under his administration where people could come in, not be deported. All they had to do was make it to Phoenix and they're safe, and they could claim the sanctuary, wait 7 years to get a court appearance for his due process, and then chill out here in the United States. And everyone's putting this accountability on us now, saying, oh, we're terrorists and doing this for deporting people. Reality is We should be flipping the accountability on those that are trying to enter here illegally. And if there is families that are going through this, granted, we don't want to see children separated, but at the same time, they are doing this to their children by coming here. They're taking this risk, and most of the time, what they're now seeing is a surge in people that are paying the cartels to get them across the border. And when they do that, it really ponders my question is why are we not going through the legal means? Why are we not using that money for a better living in Mexico while we wait for a better means to enter here, legally through our borders? There has to be something that's going on there that could be fixed or changed, but it's not here right now. And here's why Trump derangement syndrome is real, and I'll prove this to you guys right now. We just seen what Obama just said. No outrage, right?
Right.
And then we see these people now today, they're heroes, for one. They think that they're heroes. They think that they're fighting Nazis. And the government leaders that are on their side with the Democrats and liberals, they also use the same kind of rhetoric to motivate their people with their dramatic language to go out there, to protest, to block, to confront federal agencies like ICE. And then number 4, that can create dangerous situations where these confrontations, they start to risk violence. For instance, in Minnesota, clashes have escalated into shootings and fatalities. So we saw Pretti was shot by federal agents. We saw Renee Good. And this just sparks more outrage and demonstrations. After these events, people on all sides start to react strongly. Some of them use the incident to feel more anger and protests, which can lead to a cycle of violence, more confrontation, more violence, and more reaction. It just keeps on going on and on. So what I see that the outcome that these protests are really trying to do, whether the people that are there realize it or not, is trying to provoke something to justify the way that they actually feel. They feel all these things, and they believe the fascism, they believe the Nazis, they believe that the ICE is the Gestapo, and if they can get an ICE agent to attack them, or if they can get one of their people to become a martyr, then that validates all their false beliefs and gets more people on their side to fight for it, and that's all that they're after. They're not about the truth.
Well, they can't decipher the difference between, self-defense and then being the antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you see it in football or sports all the time is the best metaphor for it, where the guy picking on the dude and he reacts, and he's the guilty one for reacting, and it's the same mentality that goes into this. He'll be the one that gets penalized, and the other team gets 2 free throws. And, unfortunately, when you put them in a situation where they have to react, it's not a sport. It's not a game anymore, and it's not about points. But there's a score being kept. And I think that score is constantly solidifying this belief. Another great metaphor, too, that I would say is when you were younger, the bar scene, you always have that girl that's out with her friend, and you try to speak with her, right? And you can't. Her friend's not going to allow you to speak with her. It's her time with her. And so by basically shutting off your voice to her, they're able to keep you from having any communication, knowing all well that she would probably like to spend time with you and hang out with you, but then she would left alone. So it's that same type of manipulation that goes into it, and I think what they're doing is they're trying to convince you that even hearing something from the other side, be it a podcast or admitting that Trump has done something positive, that he's improved anything, the fact that they are so willing to negate any of that. There's no such thing as a good thing President Donald Trump has done. Not even in his first term, not when he was less hated, not when anything, and it's because they shut off that line of communication and they try to stick you in that bubble of listen to us, listen to CNN, and people will willingly shut it out on their own. They become that because, again, they're constantly getting reaffirmed. Mm-hmm. And so they're using that as, like you said, to create this cycle of attack, antagonize, get a reaction, portray that as, this terrible incident, blow it up, forget about it, repeat.
Yep. They're gonna antagonize to the point where they can claim victimhood, where they can claim martyrdom if it gets to that far, and then get it. And here's what's crazy to think about is the left is, in my opinion, has done a terrible job in trying to do this, because every time they come out with something like this, the full story gets revealed, and then their martyrs weren't as effective as they thought that they would be. right? I mean, we just saw Pretti right here, 11 days before, clearly agitating. Even the video the day of, he's still out in the middle of the street agitating. And you see Renee Good, the full story there is the ICE officer was actually hospitalized from being ran over by her vehicle. You got the headline story of the 5-year-old kid being detained by ICE was the headline story. Reality was they were actually after his father, who was an illegal immigrant, and he ran and fled and abandoned his kid. ICE took him in, took him to the drive-thru, got him some food,
fed him,
tried to feed him down. They tried to bring him back to the family's home, and nobody would answer the door for ICE. Why? I believe because of this great fear that these protesters have created around ICE, and that they're monsters, and that they're evil, and that they're Gestapo, when reality is they're just human beings trying to do their job.
And I do believe that they are after, and I think there's evidence to support this too, the bad guys. I think they're after the violent ones, the gang members, the drug dealers, the murderers, the rapists, because, you know, even today, you go to, and may I sound racist saying this, I don't mean to, it's just what I've observed. I've seen so many of illegal immigrants working at car washes. So many. I work at a white collar job, mind you. And there's plenty of them. I have no problem with them being there. They generally do a really good job. But it would be hard to go out and for them to just show up at all of these places where they're generally having a time getting a job and go get them all it could be so much worse. And I think they're really after the criminals. Don't get me wrong, if you get caught up and you don't have papers, you're gonna get supported, man. But that's just because we have to create the baseline of remove them first, then let them come back in. And unfortunately, the ones that are trying hard and working hard have to pay the consequence of what the left wing has created by letting them here, and you know the concept of the violent ones and stuff. So unfortunately, there's a blanket that goes over it, and everyone kind of gets shoved in this category. And I could see how that looks racist, but it's really hard when it starts to be, you know, your freedoms versus, you know, your rights, and they're always battling kind of back. You know, at what point are you willing to give a liberty for safety? Even on the left, there's oftentimes when it comes to gun control where they're willing to give the liberty itself to feel more safe. And in this instance, it's not viewed that way, and I just don't understand why.
I don't want anyone to feel that they're above the law in these instances, because that's never actually the case, regardless of how convincing these protesters are. But they're not robbed of their liberties. You know, the only thing that has changed is the way that due process is being handled now. It's still legal due process. It's just a lot less lengthy than it was under Joe Biden. And that doesn't mean that they are being robbed of their constitutional rights. I don't think that this is an agency that has to be feared. I think this is an agency that should be respected, and that has given people actually a fair shot, and that this Trump derangement syndrome has gone way too far. So like you said, you know, you can't do a single good thing and ever be recognized by the left community.
Yeah, we could step away from the immigration issues.
Okay,
and
let's do that.
And we can talk about just the Trump derangement in general and the same cycle. So while it does play heavily with this and this specific topic, because it's really the hot topic right now and the big thing that's going on, especially when it's something that you can see firsthand, you know. So there's multiple types of information. There's firsthand information. Obviously, we know that that's something you've witnessed and seen yourself, you know, such as ICE vehicles or raids happening. There's that firsthand accounting. There's secondhand accounting, which I think is like what, you know, you told me you saw something today.
Right.
I know you directly, you saw it directly. That's secondhand. And there's thirdhand. That's like media, social media, where someone saw it, then made an accounting of it, and you got it from a source.
Right.
Right? So, and I think that that's where, you know, people think that they're seeing, they're really convinced that, you know, because they saw it on the news and this accounting, you know, and it was shot live from this camera that is from that instance to them.
Right.
And that there's no delusion in between, but even major sports have a delay from what you see to when it happened.
Right.
And so I think that is another thing that plays a key role, is just how much, you know, you can change the whole thing by taking out a couple words. That being said, I want to bring this up on that point. I have a photo here. I saw this off of TikTok. Okay, now this is the photo of Alex Pretti. His real photo is on the left-hand side. And then his doctored photo, which is what they aired for the record, on the right-hand side. There's clearly a difference here, and you can see like his nose is almost a little broader. It looks like even shorter at the tip there. The beard is like filled in. I don't know. He's got a little more color. He's got a little more stature to him.
Yeah.
And so, do you see a clear difference here? Does this look like? Does this look like to you like it was just like, oh, we wanted to honor his memory by touching up the photo, or it's not recolored, it's not retouched, it's doctored.
Right.
That is not the same person sitting in the left as is in the right.
It's crazy because this is not something that doesn't take a lot of time to do, really. You know what I mean? Because think about it, like we run this podcast, and before coming into the podcast, I don't want to have to prepare a bunch of work to do for the podcast. I want to get to the content of the podcast.
Right.
So they're coming out with these stories, and CNN is actually making an effort. Hey, let's get in and doctor this image beforehand, rather than just taking the images that are already there and just getting it ready for show. You know what I mean? Like, why is there an incentive to do that? What purpose is that to spend more of their time to do this? You know what I mean? Rather than just getting right into it.
The gentleman that does this TikTok, I have the original video. I want to credit him for this gentleman here. I'm going to show the camera real quick. So I actually got it from his video. He does a lot of TikTok content. Sorry, man, I don't know if I have your channel or whatever, but again, I did get this info from him, and citing kind of what he points out too, that your brain tends to see these images different in the sense of how we look at someone on the left and someone on the right. He points out that the left, when at first glance your brain goes, oh, I know what that is. That's he looks like an agitator, as he says, or and the guy on the right, he looks like a healthy, hearty American, and there's just so much manipulation in just that one thing. And now, so here's the thing: you find one lie, and you now have to convince yourself that there are no more, that this is an anomaly, that this stands alone by itself. That is willful ignorance. You can't, at this point, once you smell one, you must smell more. Mm-hmm. If this is the extent they're willing to go on something this simple, why didn't they just release the regular picture?
Right. Right.
To be honest, it probably hurt their story because the left may have more identified with someone they felt on their side.
Right.
But they're trying to gut wrench us on the right, if you will, or the other side to feel like, man, he was just a hardy American nurse.
He was an ICU nurse. You know what I mean? The left is probably like, oh boy, we finally got the best martyr ever.
It looks like he eats really well.
Right? And then, sorry to lose the shocker, but the dude was also an agitator too. You know what I mean? He was not a Charlie
Even the
Kirk.
jaw structure, I mean, can you see that?
Yeah, it's totally different. You know what's really cool about this is, Trump got so much flack for saying fake news. And even I was skeptical at the time, like, how was he able to say this?
Yeah.
But doing all the work that we're doing now, Trump has been right the whole freaking time, dude. The media is like...
Look, I'll say this for everybody. If you want to be haters, you go ahead and be haters. It's the same paradigm that I'm pointing out here. You know what I mean? Was he right about all this stuff? Yeah, there's a ton of stuff coming out that he was right about. He has been wrong too, don't get me wrong. I do not believe entirely one way or the other. I believe in what I can find with evidence and empirical data. And this is that. This is a truth brought to light, and it can't be argued that this is the case because this aired on TV, on their network. I didn't doctor this video to make this up for you. Again, so the same thing. The majority of the stuff that he's talking about, he had a lot of insight. I think that was a lot of what was driving him.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful now that it got brought to light. it's either that or we would have still been stuck in the bubble. Like, dude, okay, just think about this. Everybody, just think about this. Okay, I'm going to think back to Joe Biden's presidency. When he was the president, I was feeling like I never got a win. I was feeling like, as a God-fearing man, that my religion was being attacked. As a white man, I felt like I was being attacked. As a father, and I have a wife at home, and we have a very traditional relationships, and we do embrace our gender roles, and we love that life. We're very happy with it, and we're very happy together, and because of that, I just felt like constantly taking L's. Did you
feel ashamed to embrace those traditional gender roles?
Yeah, and not only that, like, I felt afraid to be successful because, so in the sense
because you're a white man with a traditional family.
Yeah, and then so like there'd be times where like I would want to take to like social media and be like, man, great day, all this is going good for me, and I felt like in the end, like it would just be blamed on like, oh, I have had no legs up. Like, I do not come from any kind of wealth.
No, you're a white privileged male. A cis white privileged male. That's why you have all these things. You can't tote about them to the public.
That's exactly right. And it was the case, and I feel more comfortable now being able to be myself and be okay with those things and share them, because they're things that I did go earn. I paid for my crimes. I have been in prison,
Right.
I have done time. I was a drug addict. I made bad choices. I won stupid prizes.
Yep.
Thank God I learned from those things, but it comes down to it in the end that when I had to constantly feel like I had to hide who I am inside, yet they go around toting, people not being able to be who they are on the outside and have that reaffirmed constantly in their gender ideologies and identities, and it's like, why do we get forgotten?
And think about, like, would you feel uncomfortable wearing a 47 or MAGA hat or a MAGA shirt out into like a Target?
Now?
Yeah.
I still do it.
I do too, but I mean,
there are times, in with what I do for work and stuff, I will, I don't believe that companies or corporations should side with politics.
Of course not.
So I leave them out because, I'm going to show up to someone that, really supports Kamala's house in a 47 shirt, and they're not going to let me work?
Right.
No.
Right.
I'm still going to have to go where the work was, and call me what you will, and I'm a sellout or whatever, but I'm offering a service. I want to get paid for that service. It's transactional. And you're entitled to your belief, and at whatever point we're at, where you have to hate everybody that disagrees with you, I think is silly. I have some very close friends that are on the other side, and we get at it. All of us, sometimes we're mad at each other. Sometimes we think you have a stupid opinion and you said something very hurtful. That's just how it goes. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to hate somebody. That it's the same thing if people are getting deported back to Mexico, the Hispanics and stuff, if they just, are on the right side and stuff, that you get turned against them because they don't believe in your ideology. It doesn't mean that they don't believe in it. They're just not going to voice it because then it makes them guilty.
Right, and we all need to have a voice and come together and be able to talk about these things. I mean, we did that going into the No Kings protests, you know what I mean? And the biggest thing is if I had no factual evidence to support anything that we were talking about, I could look at the actions from different sets of beliefs and make a determination for myself which one seems healthier than the other, right? If I look at, Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, we see no protests, we see no outrage, we see no violence, we see no any of these things, and I will agree
nobody
that
ran over anybody with a car, nobody got shot after Charlie.
Before all that, there was some right activists that caused some problems, but I think Charlie really helped a lot of people with the ideology of what conservative movement looks like, and I think it's been a really big blessing. And when I look at the other side of beliefs, I see, even before Trump was president and Biden was president, here George Floyd is getting shot, or not shot, but killed by police officers actually, he overdosed on a drug, right? And that wasn't the case. They were doing their job there. But anyway, that's what the public believed. And what did they do? They decided to riot and destroy the city. And Renee Good, same thing. Now we see Pretti, same exact thing. So what, I think what's lacking on the left is a shared set of moral values that's kind of holding them together. You know what I mean? Because everyone has different opinions. Some people want to do a call to arms and say that now we should start bringing guns to protests, and others, they don't want to do that. There's no commonality.
It's like it's a perspective thing, because the Democrats have been in power for a good amount of time now. They've had the last presidency, obviously, for whatever reason, and so they've had that 4 years to sit and kind of get, undo the things that Trump did. And I think when you're on the side that's fighting back, not trying to suppress, that you have a different perspective, because when you're fighting against something, you have to be very knowledgeable of what you're fighting and your perspective. When you're the suppressor, you only need to be knowledgeable of your side, right? So, and I feel like there's a lot of suppression going on there, and thusly, because they are the ones in power in the sense of the news and the media, and they're able to be the ones that are suppressing, we find ourselves in the unique perspective to have to view both sides.
Right.
So, and then we're trying to share that perspective, but again, because the power is where the power lies, and it's so deeply entrenched into our media, into our news, into what our children watch, into the corporations that run the country, into the lobbying, into the fraud and the things going on in Minnesota with the Somalians and other races as well. Like I said, you get that perspective of you have to see the whole picture because your horizon's different.
Right. So I think this is a good segue in to do this. I want to do a call for action. I like to provide some type of outcome solution focus to end this off, right?
Sure.
I want to say that the call to action can be is, regardless of where you stand on political parties, whenever you're feeling these emotions towards whatever's driving you, think outcomes. Think what is going to be the outcomes of whatever it is that I'm thinking about, right? So if you're outraged at ICE, check your desired outcomes. For many, the outcome is unclear. It just feels right to be part of a perceived righteous cause that is actually inciting violence and lawlessness in our communities. When protesters turn agitators, what is really being accomplished? This is a classic martyr-seeking behavior for a cause that has little to no factual basis and is desperately seeking something to use to validate their beliefs. Radical leaders like Newsom and Walz should be held accountable. The Constitution merits them free speech, but it does not protect them from consequences. Through Minnesota state law, you can lobby for recalls. You can recall the governor, you can recall the mayor of that state, not particularly for inciting the violence, but there's a lot of other things like the fraud and everything else that's going on there that they can be recalled for. Not a political step forward that's going to be a win for Republicans, a step forward for safety, peace, and facts, right? Because when you have a leader that's willing to stand behind the whole story, that's willing to stand behind the real facts of what's going on, then we start to see a better change. Because now the leaders are supporting it, the leaders are getting behind it, and they're not feeding into this emotional driven thing that's going on right now. And when you do a recall, it's not like, oh, a Republican steps in, they're going to get another Democrat that steps in. We just hope that that next Democrat is going to be someone that's going to be able to present themselves instead of screaming, ICE, get the fuck out of our communities, to actually be saying something that's positive and worthwhile and taking into consideration the whole story. So that's my call to action. I understand where everyone may be at in these podcasts. I personally, this is a really tiring job sometimes. I look into these stories and I read them and I buy into everything that everyone else probably does. And you know what I have to do? I have to go in and I have to dig up the whole story. And every time in my experience I've dug up the whole story, I become more and more conservative every single time. And that's my personal experience, and that's why I suggest that you guys subscribe to Carrying the One, because we're always going to find that whole story for you.
Yeah, and that's my that's my segue as well. Is I wanna make sure that I put that out there for you guys too. You know, we're not here to do what Charlie did or what people like Caitlin Bennett do, where they're going out and educating the streets. We're here to seek and find and look and smell for the untruths out there, and they can be on both sides. If you have something you want to share to us that is, you know, we can look it up, we can bring it up, we can find photo evidence and or whatever to back it up. We are more than willing to do the research and just like we do in all of our episodes thus far, pull them up and put them up here, you know, where you can see the site, the source, the information. If it's first, second, or third hand, it's okay, because you know everyone can be wrong. It can fall on both sides. I will say that the more I dig, the more I tend to find myself on this side too. Do I agree with everything? No, but it's the same thing that I'll go back to. Is once you start to smell that distruth, or you start to see the holes in the story. And I promise you, if you look on media, you can see so many people that were formerly on the left starting to go this way, and that has to be for a reason. So I challenge you to be introspective and look inside. Like Andy said, you have to dig, and sometimes it's tiring. And you know what? The other thing is sometimes it's difficult. You don't want to feel like, you know, you were in the wrong. I promise you. You know, in my younger years, especially going up to 27, if you would have asked me back then, I would have told you I was a libertarian. I would have completely been on the other side of these things, and that's just what it was. That's how I felt back then, and it was, you know, also again, I was only able to see one side. I do challenge you to open your eyes and look at both sides. As always, thanks for listening. I'm Travis.
And I'm Andy. And we got one more clip to close it out. Let's hear some common sense from this kid.
All right.
I love the clock sounds. Makes me feel like I'm doing a 60 Minutes episode.
Dad, if illegal immigrants love America so much and want us to stop fighting, why don't they just self-deport? So, after I asked my dad this question, he told me to go do some research. Here's what I found. Turns out you can self-deport through the CBP1 app, receive a no-cost flight, and $2,600 incentive to return to your country of origin. They will also clear fines and violations of immigration law on your record if you committed no additional crimes. You can then reapply and legally come back. That sounds pretty fair. It would probably just bring down unsafe conflict with ICE. I'm only 14, but it makes sense to me.
All right, we'll leave you guys with that. We'll catch you on the next one.
Take it easy, guys. We'll see you on the next one.